All right, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. There is a chat section, and so if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in there and we'll have somebody answer, or we can follow up with you later on. My name is Ashley Middleton, and I am our Field Delivery Program Manager with Iowa Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Today is our applicant briefing for Disaster 4870. Today for our agenda, we'll cover how to submit a request for public assistance, provide an overview of the public assistance program, discuss procurement, EHP requirements, mitigation, and then our EM grant system and some of the steps you need to accomplish in there. Some incident overview and key dates is this is DR-4870 winter storm for approved counties Crawford, Harrison, Monona, and Woodbury. The incident dates are March 19th, 2025. Our declaration date was May 21st, 2025, and our RPA request for public assistance deadline is June 20th, 2025. The Public Assistance Program provides grants to assist communities to respond to and recover from major disasters or emergencies. The funding cost share is 75% federal share, 10% state share, and 15% local applicant share. The first step in the public assistance process is to submit a request for public assistance. The purpose of this is to verify the eligibility of the applicant in a specific disaster event. Here in Iowa, you'll submit the RPA in our grant system called EM Grants. If you're new to the system, you'll need to register first. Otherwise, you can go in and submit your RPA using the link. And if you need a tutorial, there's one on our website as well. When completing your RPA, you will need to verify your organization's information, such as your legal name, your UEI, FEIN number, organization type, and address. You'll identify a primary, alternate, and authorized contact. Your authorized contact should be someone who is authorized to sign legal documents and/or agreements on behalf of your organization. Nonprofits, you'll need to complete additional questionnaire and may need to provide additional documentation such as your IRS ruling letter. Even if you're not sure if you have enough damages or damages that are eligible under public assistance, we encourage you to submit an RPA. Regardless of that, later on in the process, if we identify that you don't have something that's eligible or insurance comes in or other funding sources come in, we can always withdraw your request for public assistance. Some key references and resources for you is the PAPPG, which is the Public Assistance Program and Policy Guide. This includes detailed guidance on program requirements, including work facility, cost eligibility, and the current version using for this disaster is version 5. I will email this out along with a copy of the slides and some other resources for you after the applicant briefing. The PA program is authorized and governed by the Stafford Act, and PA-specific regulations are found at 44 CFR 206. Uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit requirements for federal awards can be found in 2 CFR 200. We have a dedicated page on our website for the PA program where you can find additional resources and information for Iowa disaster declarations. EM Grants is our HSCM grants management system, and then FEMA operates in a system called Grants Portal. So you will work within both programs throughout this grant cycle. You'll start the process in our EM grant system, then you'll move into the Grants Portal system with FEMA, and then once your projects are obligated, everything will go back into our EM grant system. Multiple layers of government work in partnership to administer this PA program once a disaster has been declared. As the federal awarding agency, FEMA's primary responsibilities are to develop and issue program guidance and policies, award the prime PA disaster grant to the state, assist with the development and final approval of projects, and obligate funds. The state of Iowa is the recipient of the prime grant. As the pass-through entity, HSCM works in partnership with FEMA to manage and administer the program in Iowa. HSCM has a dedicated team of PA staff, and our staff are here to support you through the administration of the subawards, provide technical assistance, monitor projects, progress, and compliance. FEMA uses both the term applicant and subrecipient to identify the local partner. An applicant has applied for assistance under PA, while a subrecipient has received the subaward. The grant requirements for the prime award flow down to the subrecipient. Subrecipients are accountable for the compliant use of federal funds and completion of projects in compliance with PA program policy, terms, conditions, and regulations. There are 4 basic components of public assistance eligibility, and those are applicant, being an eligible applicant, an eligible facility, eligible work, and eligible costs. An applicant must be a state, territory, tribe, local government, or private nonprofit organization. A facility is a building, system, equipment, built or manufactured, or an improved and maintained natural feature. Work is categorized as either emergency or permanent work, and cost is the funding tied directly to eligible work and must be adequately documented, authorized, necessary, and reasonable. Eligible costs include force account labor, force account equipment, force account materials, contract work, as well as direct and indirect administrative costs. Eligible damages must be a result of the declared incident located within the designated disaster area and the legal responsibility of the applicant. Emergency work must be completed within 6 months from the declaration date, and permanent work must be completed within 18 months of the declaration date. If projects need additional time, applicants can submit an extension request in writing to our office. For private nonprofits, the facilities that provide non-critical essential services, applicants that are not non-critical facilities, they must apply for a disaster loan through the SBA. Permanent work for public assistance is dependent on a determination from the SBA, and SBA may not cover all eligible PA costs. These are a breakdown of all the categories of work under emergency and permanent work. Debris removal, Cat A, Category B, emergency protective measures. Permanent work includes roads and bridges, water control facilities, public buildings and contents, public utilities, and parks, recreational, and other facilities. Looking a little bit closer at emergency work is only eligible if the work addresses an immediate threat. FEMA defines immediate threat as a threat of imminent danger. Emergency work, again, must be completed within 6 months of the declaration. And in the grants portal system, these projects are written using a streamlined project application. There are 2 categories of work for emergency work. The first is debris removal. Debris removal includes, but is not limited to, vegetative debris, construction, demolition debris, sand, mud, silt, gravel, boulders, wet goods, vehicle, or vessel wreckage. For debris work, you want to be ready to provide an estimated quantity of debris, photos, locations of your debris, locations of any temporary reduction sites and permanent disposal sites, copies of permits if applicable, and just documentation that it's your legal responsibility and that there was an immediate threat. Category B, emergency protective measures. This category is only eligible for overtime if using force account labor. And some examples of emergency protective measures are transporting and pre-positioning equipment or resources, flood fighting, emergency operation centers, evacuation, sheltering, demolition of structures. Permanent work is our category C through G work, and it's required to restore a facility to its pre-disaster design, size, and capacity and function in accordance with the applicable codes and standards. Emergency repair or stabilization to eliminate or lessen an immediate threat is considered emergency work. All permanent work is subject to the eligibility of the facility, as we discussed regarding the PA's eligibility pyramid. Some examples of permanent work, including bringing things back to pre-disaster design, meaning that the size or capacity of the facility or as originally constructed or subsequently modified. It doesn't mean the capacity at which the applicant was using the facility at the time of the incident, if different from the most recent designed capacity. Pre-disaster function is the function for which the facility was originally designed or subsequently modified. For example, if an applicant designed and constructed an administrative building but later altered it in accordance with applicable construction codes and standards to use as a school, the pre-disaster function would be the school, and the facility was serving an alternate function at the time of the incident, but was not altered to provide that function. FEMA would provide PA funding to restore the facility either to the original pre-disaster function or pre-disaster alternate function, whichever cost is less. If you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure if your permanent work, what capacity it needs to be restored to, our staff are here to support you through that, and we'll be able to figure out what costs are eligible for you. In addition to bringing back your facility to pre-disaster, the Public Assistance Program also has 406 hazard mitigation funds that you're eligible for all permanent work. Mitigation is essentially a long-term resilience, protecting people and property from natural hazards. In the context of disaster recovery, we're talking about repairing such that it doesn't happen again, or if it does, losses are minimized. This funding is only eligible for permanent work. Some examples of mitigation include using stronger materials, elevating, burying, or floodproofing utilities and facilities, straps, guy wires, braces, tie-down anchors. The PAPPG policy has Appendix J, which includes several examples of things that are eligible for hazard mitigation. And our team is able to help you and provide some staff to figure out some good mitigation options for whatever damages you had. The federal cost share for repairing to pre-disaster is going to apply to any mitigation work as well. So they will pay 75% of that mitigation work. Now, FEMA also has a Cat Z management cost category. This category refers to your grant management and administration costs incurred as you work through the life cycle of this grant. So attending the applicant briefing, going to site inspections, gathering damage detail descriptions, gathering documentation for your grant, even post-obligation, submitting any reports, going to meetings, either with us or with FEMA, all of that is eligible for reimbursement. This is capped at 5% of your overall grant. So all your projects together, that 5% is what's capped. You do need to track your employees' time and activities throughout the life cycle of the grant. So you want to have the employee's name, the time that they spent, and what activity they spent doing. And we'll attach a tool for tracking that in the email after this presentation. So how does the PA delivery model work? The general life cycle of the disaster recovery of the PA program is organized into phases. After the presidential declaration, we have our applicant briefing. Within 30 days of the declaration, you need to request for public assistance through our EM grant system. The state and FEMA then review the RPA to confirm the organization's eligibility. Once your RPA is approved and your organization has been determined to be an eligible applicant, we'll coordinate setting up your pre-award risk assessment. Our staff work with applicants to review your agency's capacity policies and procedures. This can include reviewing written procurement policies and other compliance with federal requirements. At this time, we would also initiate your funding agreement, which is completed in our EM grant system. Overall, our intent is to always have HSCMD here to support you throughout the process. Our field delivery team will provide one contact from RPA all the way through obligation, and then our grants management and monitoring team would provide a second contact to support you from obligation to closeout. Our goal is to try and do a state-led event for this disaster, and so with that, you would only be working with our state staff. We would work with you to schedule your exploratory call, where we would kind of understand a little bit of your damages. Then we would coordinate our recovery scoping meeting to share more about how the PA program works. Applicants must identify and report all incident-related impacts to FEMA and to us within 60 days of that recovery scoping meeting. FEMA then gathers all your project-specific information by conducting site inspections or obtaining documentation. Damage information is the foundation of the overall project award, and then together with that, the scope of work and cost eligibility is tied to the eligibility of the damage. Once FEMA, HSCM, and the applicant agree on the damage description and dimensions, projects are then scoped and costed. Documentation is reviewed, and once final reviews are completed, projects are obligated. All of this project formulation does happen in the FEMA grants portal system. The federal share of the project becomes available to the recipient at obligation. If the project is a small 100% completed work, then the project is paid out at obligation. If it's work to be completed, then the state pays out up to $250,000. And then if it's a large project, that is paid out through reimbursement requests. At the end of this formulation phase, we would have a recovery transition meeting to transition the applicant from the field phase, usually with FEMA or with us, to the state phase with post-obligation grant management and monitoring support. Any amendments or extension requests must be submitted to the state in writing, and you can consult with your project officer if you have any questions. Post-obligation, everything happens in our EM grant system. Disaster impacts. So these used to be called the damage inventories. They've changed the name recently. So if you've participated in public assistance before, this is that same thing. It's just called something different now. Damage impacts lay the foundation for all future actions, including project formulation, damage descriptions, dimensions, scope of work, cost estimates, all which lead to your project's obligation. You can download an Excel spreadsheet template out of Grants Portal where you can fill in all your disaster impacts. And these are required, again, to be submitted within 60 days of your recovery scoping meeting. Generally, within the process, first things are organized based on categories of work and facility types. So we would work with you to organize all of your damages into projects. We would then capture the related pre-disaster damage information into the project, scope the work that would need to be done to repair, or if the work's already been completed, scope the work that's already been done, and capture the costs of either to do the work or what work has already been completed. Projects must meet FEMA's minimum project threshold of $4,000 to be eligible. You can have multiple damage items in a project, so it's that project total. Again, small projects by FEMA are paid on estimate, so this could be an estimate that you provide, that we help you put together, or that FEMA provides for the work that needs to be done. Projects over $1,062,900 are considered large projects, and those are paid out on actuals. FEMA reviews and validates all the documentation that you provide to ensure accuracy and that things are written correctly with compliance with all laws and regulations, including duplication of benefits from insurance or other federal agencies. FEMA also looks at environmental and historical preservation, hazard mitigation, insurance specialist reviews to help develop the applicable proposals. Once again, here in Iowa, for small projects, if the work is completed, the entire federal share is paid out. If the work is to be completed, we'll pay up to $250,000 of that estimated project costs. And if it's a large project, projects are not paid out upon obligation. The applicant can submit requests for reimbursement for additional funds through our EM grant system, and the state share is dispersed at closeout. Even though FEMA writes projects on estimate, you are required to track and report all actual final costs to the state for your state share. Procurement. Procurement is definitely one of those things that can cause ineligibility issues through the public assistance program. Failure to follow federal procurement and contracting requirements really can jeopardize your funding. This presentation does not cover all federal procurement and contracting requirements. In 2 CFR, it states that applicants must have and use document procurement procedures consistent with state, local, tribal laws and regulations. You can find all the federal procurement requirements in 2 CFR. If you guys have any questions, need any help, aren't sure what your procurement processes are, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you with that. One big question that we get is if applicants can just use the state's procurement policies and processes, and the answer to that is no. Non-state applicants must have their own written procurement procedures that reflect applicable state, tribal, local government laws and regulations, provided that the procurement conform to the applicable federal law and standards. And we'll go through this a little bit more when you do your pre-award risk assessment with us as well. Some key parts about procurement are our micro purchases. These may be awarded without soliciting competitive quotations if price is considered reasonable. Small purchases must be informal, and you should receive several price quotes. We encourage a minimum of 3. Seal bids are formal, with formal advertising, competitive proposals, qualifications based, non-competitive procurement. We caution this. This is limited primarily to emergency work. One or more of the following must apply. The items only available from a single source. The public exigency or emergency for that requirement will not permit delay resulting from competitive solicitation. FEMA or the recipient expressly authorizes in response to written requests from the applicant, and after solicitation of a number of sources, competition is determined inadequate. FEMA has some acceptable contract types, including lump sum, unit price, cost plus fixed fee, time and materials. If no other contract is suitable, make sure that this has a ceiling price associated with that contract. And warning, FEMA does not reimburse costs incurred under a cost plus percentage contract. Record keeping is crucial throughout the whole life cycle of the grant, but especially with your procurement. We encourage you to record when, how, what, why you chose a particular vendor for a purchase, service, or contract. We encourage you to document everything that you do. FEMA, our state, an independent auditor can all request this at any moment, even if FEMA isn't asking for these documents during your formulation of your project. When staff changes occur, we encourage you to ensure that someone knows where the records are for this grant. This grant life cycle can take a long time. Although this is a smaller disaster, it might not. But a lot of times when staff transition through years, they're not sure where documentation is. FEMA also reviews each project to ensure compliance with applicable EHP requirements, environmental and historical preservation. Additional information on this can be found in the PAPPG in Appendix A. We also have a green sheet that I will attach in my email and is linked onto our website. HSCM recommends that applicants review FEMA Special Consideration Questions and FEMA Form 009-0-12. This form is completed for each PA project and can assist applicants with identifying items related to their project that may require additional review by FEMA. Projects near waterways or floodplains require a cooperative effort between the applicant and regulatory agencies. Additional information on submitting the joint applicant through the DNR's permit website can be found on the DNR's website, and FEMA does require a response from both the DNR and USACE. DNR permits are required for some debris staging, whether vegetative or not, open burning and projects affecting air quality, floodplain development, excavation and fill, public water supply and wastewater facilities, landfills, pollution discharge points. HSCM does have an EHP specialist that can help you if you have any questions with this as well. In addition to the environmental review, the applicant also has a FEMA has the National Historical Preservation Act that requires federally funded projects to be reviewed for potential impacts on archaeological, historical, or cultural areas and artifacts. To meet this requirement, FEMA works with Iowa State Historic Preservation Office, along with about 24 tribal historical preservation offices to ensure that these are protected. While every project will be reviewed, certain factors will cause FEMA to take a closer look at the PH projects, namely facilities that are located in floodplains, are being relocated or expanded beyond the original footprint, are more than 45 years old, facilities that have exceptional significance, facilities that are on the historic register, and work being done near archaeological sites. Some tips and takeaways from this is to consider EHP from the very beginning. Read FEMA's green sheet for the current disaster. Work with an old footprint if possible. Speed up the EHP review with any previous studies done on the area. Provide site plans for new ground disturbance, including perimeter and depth of disturbance. Designate debris staging areas and check with the DNR prior to use. Provide accurate GPS locations of all project sites. Provide dates of construction of all man-made facilities. Identify where fill material or gravel are coming from. Let us and FEMA know immediately if anything changes in the project that could trigger a new environmental concern, and document everything. So once again, the most important thing for you to do after this applicant briefing is to go to our EM grant system and request for public assistance. This is very, very important, even if you're not sure if you have any damages eligible, or if you're not sure if you'll be receiving insurance funds or another funding source. Please, please, please go into our system, request for public assistance, register. If you have any questions after this, I will send our contact information. Please reach out to us and let us know, and we're happy to help you through that process. Additionally, in our EM grant system, you'll have to do a few other things to make sure that once you do have obligated projects, you can actually receive the funds and we can pay them out to you. One of those first things is making sure you have a unique entity identifier. This has replaced the DUNS number that we used to use, and this can be done in sam.gov. If you may already have one assigned, and you can look that up in sam.gov. If you don't have one, you can request one, and I will provide some additional information. Full registration for this is not required, and that's, if you do, the full registration can take actually a lot longer. If you have received a recent award from us, then you probably already have one on file with us. The next thing that will happen, which kind of kicks off your funding agreement, is the pre-award risk assessment. So we are required to do this to measure the ability of you, the applicant, to manage federal funds. Based on your pre-award risk assessment, will determine the level of monitoring that needs to be done post-obligation of your award. You'll receive a single-page document from someone on our disaster grants and management team. A little tip and trick is to make sure you click the enable button so that you can see all the drop-down options. Most of these questions will be yes or no questions, and it should be a really easy form for you to fill out. Once we receive that, our staff will determine your risk. Any notifications that we might see of additional policies will be sent to you directly. You may need to provide policies and information to complete that pre-award risk assessment. If a policy is not compliant, we will work with the applicant to address updates needed to come into compliance. Applicants are asked to take action required on those policies within 30 days. If you need additional time, please let us know. And our EM grant system also has our funding agreement. This needs to be signed electronically in EM grants. There is a paper form, so if you need that, please let us know. We cannot distribute any funds until this is completed. It must be completed and signed by your authorized representative and your chief financial officer. And again, all this happens in our EM grant system. So that is the end of my presentation.